Hello and welcome to ETEnergyworld. I am Sudhir, and this is the Energy Leadership Series where we are today talking to Dr. Nikolas Meitanis. He's the Executive Director for Strategy and Corporate Development at Masdar. First of all, a very warm welcome to you on our platform, Dr. Nikolas.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. Let me begin this conversation by trying to have a broad, understanding from you in terms of, what's your overall experience like, and the kind of profile and the responsibilities that you have at Mastar. It's a big company for everybody who is interested in the energy space. Everybody who is looking at the energy space globally and particularly in this region, Masdar is among the largest companies, and so we want to understand somebody like you. So what's the profile like, and what keeps you busy?
So, what keeps me busy, I suppose, are the objectives of the shareholders of the company, and those objectives have a growth element, an organizational management element, the value creation element. So, my former role, as the title implies, includes a few things, including strategy, strategic partnerships, includes investment lifecycle management for investments that Mazda makes, sustainability and ESG, health and safety and environment, enterprise risk management, business continuity management, a few other things, supporting the C-suite with tools in order to be able to make decisions, and potentially some strategic organizational projects that we are running internally. That's also part of my scope. You're right. Masdar is a global organization with a lot of activities around the world. We have developed projects in over 40 countries at this stage. We are actively investing and developing at least 30, and that's likely to expand. So as the company grows, of course, the responsibilities of its executives also change. But suffice it to say that we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I hope to contribute to that.
Okay. No, I am. That's right. It's a Masdar is a global energy giant. With presence across multiple regions and working on multiple technologies. And that reminds me, you have a PhD in nuclear physics from
I do,
MIT.
yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah.
So who understands technology better than you do? But I want to understand from you, Dr. Nicholas, from a strategy point of view, right? You're also looking at strategy. I want to understand, how does the company view its future growth trajectory, right? Where do you see, how when you sit and strategize for future growth, what are the top two or three things that you work upon, both from the point of view of technologies or other, trends, capturing the trends, business opportunities, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's the right way to ask the question as well. In order to get the right answer, often you start from asking the right question. That is the right question. What is strategy, first of all? So strategy is a set of guidelines that allow you to position yourself to develop, exploit, sustain a certain competitive advantage. We all operate in competitive markets. And the question often is, how can I do a better job than my competitor? Can I create that additional value? How can I win this project over the competition? And that's the environment in which Masdar has operated from the very beginning. We're always out in open markets competing for the successes that Masdar sees today. So the right question is, to the way you asked it, is look at your growth from different lenses. One is perhaps geographic, the other is technological, the other is around, let's say, a mode of capital deployment. How do you deploy capital? So if we take this one by one, I'll take the middle one. Technology is the easiest one. Solar and wind will dominate renewable energy for the foreseeable future. Green hydrogen may be a player, but that's not really renewable in that sense. So if we speak about electricity generation, solar, wind being onshore and offshore, solar being photovoltaic technology, that is likely to dominate the growth in renewables. And we are very comfortable with all these technologies. We have in-house expertise. We've been doing this since the beginning of these technologies, since when they started coming to the market at very, very different price points than what we see today. And we've ridden sort of that technology decline curve and the maturity curve of these technologies to where we are today. So that's from a technological lens. If you want to look at it from a geographic lens, we have a target of growing to 100 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030. We are currently around 20, which means we need to quintuple the portfolio within a short 6 years. And that is a significant acceleration in pace, considering how long it took us to get to the first 20. It's not as difficult or complex as it sounds, because the renewable energy market of 2024 is very different than the renewable energy market of 2006, when Masdar was established. Back then, a 10 megawatt solar farm was an achievement. Today, we are signing power purchase agreements in Abu Dhabi for 1,500 megawatts, 2,000 megawatts. So the scale has increased, the competitiveness of these technologies has increased. The appetite from off-takers, be they the government regulators that enforce certain renewable energy obligations on producers and consumers, or be it from private businesses themselves, like data centers, who want to green their operations, who want to provide to their customers a product that is based and powered by renewable energy around the clock. So it's a massively different market. So while the target sounds very ambitious, we also believe it's quite achievable. Right? It doesn't come without effort, of course. It needs a lot of effort, a lot of care, a lot of caution needs to go into this, and a lot of hard work. But we believe it's achievable. Now, where will this growth come from? Certain markets, obviously, I'm sure, as you are aware, see significant growth in renewables. The world's second largest market, the United States, for example, is a market in which we are very keen to continue investing. We already have a portfolio of 6 assets there that are all in operation, primarily solar and wind, some battery element. We recently made an announcement for an acquisition of a strategic stake in a developer based out of California. This is already in the news, but the process is under regulatory approvals, so it's not closed yet. We expect that would allow us to accelerate our investments in the United States, and the United States to be one of the top 5 geographic contributors to that growth. The European continent, not every country, of course, the European continent is large and it's very fragmented into a large number of small countries. We see some growth there, particularly in places maybe in the south, perhaps Spain or Greece or Italy. We see growth in both solar and wind there. We are very active in, I'm just going towards the eastern side. We are very active in Central Asia. We've seen great success in places like Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan. We are very active in Georgia or Kazakhstan, some of the other stans as well. We see significant potential. Then closer to our region, the Middle East, particularly the GCC, I would expand that a little bit to Egypt or Jordan, but particularly the UAE and Saudi Arabia have very, very ambitious renewable energy programs in which we expect we would be one of the leading players in terms of market share. And then there's Asia. Asia, again, much like Europe, is even larger and even more fragmented. India, for example, is a fantastic market, lots of opportunity. It's something that we will continue looking at. We are not presently active in India, but we see massive opportunity. We are active in Indonesia, in Malaysia. We're looking at other jurisdictions like the Philippines. We have some interest in Australia. So very diversified portfolio. We don't see one market necessarily dominating, but a combination of, let's say, 10 countries in 4 geographic regions comprising the bulk of this 80 gigawatt growth we expect to see. And just for your audience, a gigawatt, which is a unit of power capacity, typically for solar and wind, think of it as between $800,000 and $1 million per gigawatt. So that's a billion. So 800 per megawatt. So 800 million to $1 billion per gigawatt.
Yeah, I was about to, that was a follow-up question. What kind of investment do we see flowing in there? But you have given some sense of that. Thanks for giving us this sense of, the geographic spread of this expansion plan. It's huge. Uh, what what I really want to understand is, if you could quickly take us through currently, what are the top three projects, right? The three of the most important, most ambitious projects that Masdar is working on, from the point of view of business, this entire business expansion you're talking about, or establishing leadership positions in technologies that are present. Can you give us some sense of that?
Yes, sure. Let's start close to home. Let's start in the UAE, in Dubai in particular. We were awarded a 1.8 gigawatt solar project. Very recently, we reached financial close. I want to say in January of this year, and that's a project that will be delivered over the next 2 years in 3 phases. It's 1.8 gigawatts, so you can get the sense of the investment size, probably close to $1.5 billion. And that is massive in scale. It's very important for the UAE grid. And as you know, the UAE has targets of increasing its renewable energy penetration into the grid. So that's one such project, won by Masdar in a competitive process. In Central Asia, I mentioned earlier, we've seen great success in places like Uzbekistan, but also Azerbaijan. So in Azerbaijan, we are working with the government in order to implement a multiple gigawatt program in solar and onshore wind. I mentioned Azerbaijan as very important because of COP29. As you are aware, COP28 took place in Dubai very recently, 6 months ago. It ended in what we see as great success and unilaterally praised for the UAE consensus of tripling renewables, doubling energy efficiency, and gradually phasing out hydrocarbons. COP29 is a continuation of that. It's taking place in Baku, so Azerbaijan, so that's very important for us as a geography. And maybe a third project, if I may, offshore wind is a technology that's important in our portfolio. Offshore wind is more complex than onshore wind or solar. It takes longer development lead times to get these projects into operation. We have substantial interest, and we've been one of the pioneers in offshore wind. The first investment we made was close to 14 years ago. Most recently, we announced 2 cornerstone investments. One in Baltic Eagle. This is an under construction offshore wind farm in Germany that was originally developed by Iberdrola. So we are now partners with Iberdrola in this 475 megawatt wind farm. And further than that, we engaged with RWE. We acquired 50% stake in the Dogger Bank South project in the UK. This is a massive offshore wind program to be delivered in a few phases. It's 3,000 megawatts. The scale of the investment reaches 11, I believe, billion pounds over the next 7 years. So it doesn't get bigger than that in terms of capital deployment. So if I were to mention a few, would be these. We have investments everywhere else, really. Africa, for example, is an important continent. We closed the transaction in Africa last year, acquiring a development platform called Lekela. Lekela was one of the leading developers on the continent, specialized on the continent. So we acquired that. We merged it with our existing interests, us and our partners, based out of Cairo through Infinity Power Holding. And we are now the number one developer of renewable energy on the continent of Africa. So a lot of projects being diversified is a benefit. So there is a lot of these projects to mention. A lot of them push the envelope in terms of technology, pioneering use of new ideas or new models. And I can mention a few of those as well if you're interested, but that's a snapshot of a few projects we're working on.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The last question that I want to ask you, Dr. Nicholas, is there's this very strong narrative of energy transition, right, which is now taking shape globally in the energy industry. And I want to understand from you, how does Masdar view this transition and the kind of opportunities that it presents? So, for example, we're talking about renewables, but then we also know that renewables will also require a lot of storage, and that's one area where technology development is happening at a very fast pace. It's also costly. It raises cost significantly, makes renewables slightly less cost effective to that extent. Then we have, at the same time, we also have new technologies like green hydrogen, for example. How do you make sense of this transition? How does Mazda see itself placed in the middle of this transition? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Give us some sense of that.
Yeah, so for us, the energy transition needs to be pragmatic and needs to be gradual. So we need energy. We need energy that is affordable, that is reliable, so robust systems to provide that electricity where it's needed. And we need energy that is clean. So I would say this is the trifecta of the objectives that we should have. While we will all like to decarbonize tomorrow, that simply is not feasible practically, economically, technologically today, right? So if you follow a gradual approach, you also have to look at where does the demand for energy come from. The demand comes from a wide range of users. It comes from a vehicle, it comes from a ship, it comes from a steel plant, an aluminum smelter, a data center. It comes from or any building for that matter, in your home, in my home. We all use energy. So because energy usage is so diversified, so are carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are very diverse. And therefore, it is not a one technology that will win the game, but it's a combination of technologies for specific uses. Renewable energy does a fantastic job in decarbonizing electricity grids,
Yeah.
right? As long as you can electrify something and connect it to the grid, renewable energy can clean it, essentially, can provide clean electricity to it. You're right that there is an intermittency issue with renewable energy. The sun doesn't shine at night, the wind doesn't always blow. Therefore, you need to be able to bridge those gaps in renewable energy real time. And to do that, you will need some form of storage, or you will need to combine some base load renewable energy sources with solar and wind. By base load, I mean something that is 24/7, like a hydropower plant, for example. And then there is electricity storage through batteries. You can store the electricity. We are still at the beginning of this technology. It is still the first few years in which we see scale up of the production capacity for batteries. And we expect that with bigger manufacturing facilities coming into the game, more R&D money going into this, into fine-tuning the chemistries, making the energy more dense, less demanding in terms of rare material like cobalt, perhaps longer lasting. All of these things will significantly reduce the cost of storage. So as long as you electrify something, you have renewable energy to make sure it is clean. Now, there are sectors you cannot electrify, perhaps. If I think of heavy transport, shipping, aviation, very difficult to electrify. Batteries likely would take away so much of the carrying capacity of a ship or a plane, may pose some danger. Therefore, we don't see those technologies being applicable to aviation or shipping. And that's when you need perhaps green hydrogen. Green hydrogen can come in. Green hydrogen, for your audience, this benefit is produced through water, through electrolysis. So you get the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen can be used as a molecule in its molecular form, or can be transformed through other chemical processes into things like green ammonia or sustainable aviation fuel, methanol. So there are different uses for that as well. But we expect that a combination of renewable energy, green hydrogen, battery storage, all these technologies will help us eventually to decarbonize. We're headed the right way. We need to accelerate. We need to triple renewables by 2030. We are nowhere near that yet. So a lot more needs to go into this, and that takes capital, that takes effort, that takes expertise, licensing and permitting, acceleration. All of these things need to be put in place. But hey, we're optimistic, and we're here fighting the fight.
Okay. And best of luck for that. Dr. Nicholas, this brings us to an end of this fantastic discussion. Thank you for your time. And thanks for giving us that wonderful perspective on some of the key trends and technologies that are emerging in the energy space. Thank you. And we really look forward to hosting you again on our platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, Start.
In
Pleasure
fact,
meeting you.